Betrayed by her mother, pregnant and homeless, Aradhna fought back with cakes to conquer despair. Forced to fight for every shred of dignity and hope. This is Aradhna's story, a young woman from India who faced heartbreak and betrayal at every turn. Abandoned by her own mother, forced into a harsh life from a young age, Aradhna struggled to survive, clinging to a dream of a better life for herself and her unborn child. She faced countless trials, from bearing her child alone in a hospital where others judged her to navigating life as a single mother while society dismissed and misjudged her. At her lowest, even the roof over her head was taken away, forcing her onto the streets with her baby. But Aradhna's resilience never wavered. Through courage and sheer will, she rose above her circumstances, learned new skills, and transformed her life, using every opportunity to rise from hardship to independence. This story is about survival, strength, and the power to reinvent one's destiny. Aradhna's journey reminds us that even in the darkest moments, we can find a way to not only survive but thrive. Stay with us to hear the powerful and inspiring journey of a woman who refused to be defeated. Let's know her full story.
Aradhna's journey of struggle and endurance began long before she became a mother. She was only about 5 or 6 years old when her father passed away, leaving her mother alone. With no source of income, her mother decided she couldn't raise Aradhna on her own. So, she placed her in an orphanage, where Aradhna grew up and completed her senior secondary education. Orphanage rules were strict. Once a child turned 18, they were returned to their family. So, Aradhna found herself back with her mother. For the first few months, Aradhna tried to adjust, but those months turned out to be far harder than anything she had faced. Her mother made her do endless chores, her health often faltering under the strain. She wasn't accustomed to this level of work after her time in the orphanage. Her hands would get burned, she'd slip and injure herself, and she'd fall ill multiple times each month. Many times she asked herself, how could my own mother be so cruel? Aradhna tried to make sense of her mother's treatment. Perhaps the years apart had somehow faded her mother's attachment to her, she thought. Whatever the reason, Aradhna knew that her mother was not happy with her return and frequently pressured her to get married. But Aradhna had dreams of her own. She wanted to build a career. She had always had a passion for cake design. Aradhna hoped to turn this love for creativity into her profession, but when she told her mother, she was met with scorn. Cake design? Her mother said dismissively, that's just sweet making. Why would you choose a job like that? Trying to explain, Aradhna replied, this is what I love, Mummy. I know it sounds simple, but I have big dreams. One day, I'll make you proud. Her mother, however, believed marriage would be the solution to all her concerns, thinking it would end her own worries about Aradhna's future. But Aradhna wasn't ready to give up her dreams. She tried one last time, saying, Mummy, just support me for a few months. Once I'm able to stand on my own feet, I'll manage my life myself. Finally, her mother agreed to let her live away from home temporarily. Aradhna found a typist job in a local office, and with her first paycheck, she paid for cake-making classes she'd long wanted to join. For a month, Aradhna committed herself to a demanding schedule, studying cake-making in the mornings and working as a typist in the afternoons. But despite her efforts, her employer dismissed her after just 1 month, saying she wasn't skilled enough in typing for the workload required. Aradhna had already spent her first paycheck on the cake-making course, leaving her with no money for rent. Her landlord began pressuring her for payment, and when she pleaded for just 1 more month, he refused, eventually throwing her out and leaving her homeless. Thus began yet another chapter in Aradhna's fight for survival. That night, feeling completely lost, Aradhna spent her first night alone on a park bench, unable to find a place to stay. For days, her routine became one of attending her cake design classes in the morning, and then sitting in the park, hoping for some solution. In that same park, a young man would come by daily for his walk. At first, she paid him no attention, too lost in her thoughts, but he noticed her and was puzzled by her situation. One day, unable to contain his curiosity, he approached her in a playful way, extending his hand in a signature Shah Rukh Khan style and saying, Hi, I'm Rahul. Surely you've heard of me. Aradhna couldn't help but laugh. It was the first time in days that she felt any lightness. She laughed so hard that all the tension and sadness from the past few days seemed to pour out at once. She'd felt so alone. Her family had shown her no sympathy, and society seemed indifferent to her struggles. But Rahul's warmth and lightheartedness broke through her defenses, and she found herself opening up to him, sharing everything. From that day on, Rahul became a regular part of her life, meeting her each day and spending hours talking with her. He genuinely listened, trying to understand her struggles, and in time, they developed a close bond. Reflecting now, Aradhna realizes that part of her decision to start a relationship with him was because no one else had shown her kindness or support. Rahul's presence was comforting, and it meant a lot to her to have someone who stood by her during those difficult days. Rahul's support brought her a sense of security and stability that she had longed for, so when he proposed marriage, she agreed. She also hoped that her mother would finally be pleased since she had always insisted on marriage. But to her surprise, her mother reacted with anger, opposing the union instead of expressing happiness. Rahul's parents too refused to accept the marriage. Undeterred, Rahul and Aradhna went ahead with a court marriage, determined to be together. For the first time in a long time, Aradhna felt truly happy, believing she'd finally found love and a caring partner. She felt like the luckiest woman alive, with a husband who was not only loving but attentive and devoted. But just 4 months into her pregnancy, a devastating piece of news shattered her world. Rahul had been in a terrible accident. Aradhna was crushed, overcome with grief. Everything had seemed so perfect, and in a matter of moments, her happiness was taken from her. Lost and overwhelmed, she decided to return to her mother, hoping she would find support and guidance in this dark moment. Instead of comfort, her mother met her with harsh words and scornful taunts, showing no empathy for her situation. It was as if her very existence as a woman had somehow been a disappointment. In her anger, her mother even physically attacked her, going so far as to kick her in the stomach despite her pregnancy. The pain was excruciating, both physically and emotionally. Aradhna couldn't believe that, at a time when a daughter needed her mother's support the most, she was met with such cruelty. In a state of utter despair and pain, Aradhna was once again thrown out of her mother's house. With nowhere else to go, she walked on foot from Faridabad to Gurgaon, her swollen feet throbbing with each step. She had no place to stay, no food, and nothing to keep her going except sheer survival. She spent 2 nights on the roadside, terrified and alone, worried something terrible might happen. During those days on the road, a couple who ran a small tea stall near where she was staying noticed her. For 2 days they observed her, sensing her distress. On the 3rd day, the woman approached her, asked about her situation, and after hearing her story, invited her to their small hut, offering her food and shelter. Grateful, Aradhna accepted the offer and finally managed to eat a proper meal after days of hunger. She hadn't even needed to relieve herself in 2 days, having eaten so little. But the food they provided gave her some relief. When she asked the woman for a place to freshen up, she was kindly taken to a nearby public washroom where she could bathe and regain some sense of dignity. The couple allowed her to stay in their hut as long as she needed, and she helped them with small chores in return. They even provided her with a few utensils to cook her meals in the hut when they were away at night, allowing her a sense of normalcy and privacy. For a while, things felt stable, but life had more challenges in store. One morning, the municipal authorities arrived and demolished the couple's hut, warning them against setting up on government land again. They seized everything, including the tea stall setup, leaving the couple without a livelihood. Seeing this, Aradhna's anxiety returned. Her shelter, as well as the couple's income, had been taken from them. Sensing her distress, the woman assured her, "Don't worry, child. We've faced this before. We'll find another spot to start again." Her words comforted Aradhna, but the woman added, "But my worry now is you. If it were just you, I wouldn't worry, but you're carrying a little one as well." Eventually, the woman helped Aradhna find work in a large household nearby, where an elderly gentleman lived alone. Aradhna took up the role of a cook and house cleaner, and in return, she was given a small room in the servants' quarters. It wasn't much, but it offered her safety and a chance to rebuild her life once more. When Aradhna's delivery time arrived, she found herself completely alone. It was already a daunting experience, but facing childbirth without a father figure for the child made it even harder. With no family support, she went to a government hospital, where the atmosphere only heightened her fear. The hospital staff and other patients stared at her, questioning how such a young girl, barely 20, was there to deliver a child on her own. She could feel the judgment in the glances from nurses, doctors, and others around her, as if she were some kind of outsider. Without a husband, how did she end up here? Who's the father? She could sense these questions hanging in the air. As the pain grew more intense, her frustration mounted. She had arrived at 8 a.m., but even by noon she hadn't been admitted. Instead, the staff focused on her verification process, questioning her more than providing any actual assistance. Her labor pains worsened, and she felt herself growing weaker, unable to stand any longer. Finally, a senior doctor happened to pass by and noticed her condition. He demanded to know why she hadn't been admitted. The nurse explained, "She's here alone and she's in labor." Annoyed, the doctor retorted, "So if she's alone, she doesn't deserve help? This is a hospital. Help her immediately." He ordered them to admit her to the labor ward, promising to handle any paperwork later. Suddenly, the staff sprang into action, and soon after, Aradhna delivered a baby girl. The moment she held her daughter for the first time, all the pain and hardship seemed to melt away. Tears welled in her eyes as she gazed at her newborn, thinking about her own mother. Surely my mother must have felt this same joy when she first held me. How could things have changed so much between us? She wondered. During her pregnancy, strangers and neighbors alike had made cruel comments. Some advised her to get rid of the child, while others suggested, "If you have this baby, you could just sell it." Hearing such words was heart-wrenching, and she felt deeply alone. Yet, as she held her daughter, she resolved, "No, I will raise my daughter alone. I won't give up." Aradhna stayed strong, determined to support her child by herself. When her daughter was 3 months old, however, the elderly homeowner she worked for passed away. His children decided to sell the property and asked her to move out. During the funeral, a woman approached Aradhna and offered her a place to stay, which she gladly accepted, grateful for any help. For the first couple of days, the woman was welcoming, but things quickly changed. Soon she made it clear that if Aradhna wanted to stay, she would have to work as a call girl and bring in money. The woman repeatedly tried to convince her, saying, "Look at me. I was once struggling just like you. But this work has given me everything I need." Despite the pressure, Aradhna refused each time. The thought of turning to such work never crossed her mind, no matter how much the woman tried to persuade her, tempting her with promises of a life of comfort and luxury. One day, while the woman was busy with a client, Aradhna saw an opportunity. Quietly, she gathered her daughter and slipped out, escaping into the night. She didn't know where she would go or what would come next, but she knew she had to get away. The next morning, carrying her baby, Aradhna went out to search for a rental room. Many people turned her away, unwilling to rent to a single mother. But finally, a kind-hearted woman took pity on her and offered her a room without any upfront payment. Aradhna managed to find a job shortly after. Now her struggle turned to arranging childcare, and she soon found a solution by placing her baby in a nearby daycare center. Her routine became steady. Mornings were for work, evenings were for picking up her daughter from daycare, playing with her and teaching her new things. After a few months, Aradhna even managed to save a little. Life finally began to stabilize, and her daughter turned 1. For the first time in years, Aradhna felt a sense of happiness and contentment. But the challenges were never far behind. Being a young widow, she was often the subject of gossip. People whispered behind her back, judged her with suspicious eyes, and some even made unwelcome advances or suggested remarriage. Aradhna learned to ignore the comments, focusing on the life she was building for herself and her daughter. However, her journey took another turn when the COVID-19 lockdown began. Suddenly, everything shut down, including her job, leaving her without any income. Her savings quickly dwindled, and soon she had no money left for rent. Her landlord began pressuring her, insisting on payment. Without any means to pay, she was forced to leave and find yet another place to live. With her savings gone, even basic needs like gas for cooking and milk for her daughter became out of reach. She was heartbroken, feeling like a failed mother for not being able to provide her daughter with even the essentials. During this dark time, she thought of her own mother and wondered if she ever thought about her. But she quickly pushed such thoughts aside and focused on the present. Through the orphanage where she'd spent her childhood, Aradhna was introduced to Sunil Dhami, who ran a charitable trust named Hayelina in Sahebabad. When she arrived at the trust, the people there welcomed her, offering her the support she desperately needed. Despite this kindness, she still struggled to feel optimistic, so Sunilji began counseling her, helping her regain her motivation and sense of purpose. Encouraged by the trust's support, Aradhna finally returned to her passion for cake designing. She was given the space and freedom to hone her skills, and soon with the trust's help, she began taking small cake orders. People loved her cake designs and the unique flavors she crafted. As demand grew, the trust even developed a website to help sell her cakes online. Within months, she was receiving up to 50 orders a day, an accomplishment that filled everyone around her with pride. The trust took none of the profits from her cake business, but feeling grateful for all they'd done, Aradhna decided to donate half of her earnings back to the trust. She believed it was her way of giving back to the organization that had not only supported her dreams, but given her life a renewed purpose.
Life's toughest moments test our strength and resilience. What would you do in this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss an inspiring story. Every story we tell sheds light on real struggles and real emotions. Help us spread awareness. Stay strong, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next one.